Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello, Potteroonies or Podsters if you prefer. We are back again for part 2. This is, of course, the part of the show where we have a look at your Instagram responses from the previous episode. And that, of course, was on R-rated comic book films 2, the sequel. And Anton Kinnerlove went with Deadpool. And Jake from the Movie Boners went with 3 because he couldn't choose. Watchmen, 330 Days of Night. Some great movies there. Tommy, I'm intrigued. What is your R-rated comic book film for you?
All right, so I'm biased because I just watched this again recently, but Blade. I just think,
oh yeah.
I think that what a movie that opens up with a blood rave is just the most insane thing. I love it. It's hilarious. And Wesley Snipes is just perfectly cast. I think that it still holds up, and it brings me a lot of 90s nostalgia watching that movie.
Yeah, and of course that was my choice for the episode. So yeah, do check that one out, Tommy. Such a great film, and it was just great seeing him pop up again in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Spoilers, but I mean, come on, it's been out for a while now.
yeah. It's been 4 months.
Yeah. And it's, I think it's on streaming now, or it will be soon. So, this episode, though, we are talking horror sequels to the sequel. I know that's confusing. Just go with it. Tommy, it is your turn for your film. What film did you go for?
All right, so I went with Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This is directed by Chuck Russell, also directed The Mask. And it is, I think, the pinnacle of Freddy Krueger movies. It is about a bunch of teens that pretty much get nightmares, and they all have this pattern nightmare, and they're sent to a mental hospital, which I'm forgetting the name of off the top of my head right now. But they all have these shared delusions, and then all of a sudden, Heather Langenkamp from the first movie, Nancy, comes in and tells them, your dreams are right. You should be scared. I'm here to help you. And they try to take down Freddy using their dream powers. Some characters turn to wizards. Some characters turn to badass punk girls. Other characters can do flips, which I guess is a superpower. So, but overall, it's a fun, campy 80s movie, and I just love every piece of it.
Yeah. And a D&D wizard, apparently. So have you watched all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies?
I think at this point I've seen everyone at least once. I have a big DVD box set of the first 6. I think Freddy vs. Jason's in that too. And I remember when I was in high school was when the remake came out. So I was in 10th grade. This is before I turned 17, a red movie. So I remember I had to sneak into the movie theater with my friends to go see the Jackie Earle Haley one. And we were so paranoid because we watched other people around our age get kicked out of the theater. And we're like, be silent. Don't say anything. And we stayed, and that ended up being a shit movie.
Why did we do this, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
We should have got kicked out.
I have right here some Freddy Vans. You can kind of see them right here.
Oh, nice.
So awesome. They're very cool. And I'm wearing my Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warrior shirt for the pod, and I have a coaster of the movie too. So
nice.
Yeah, Freddy's definitely my favorite of the 80s horror villains. Especially this movie too. I think Robert Englund's hilarious in this.
Yeah. That's my reel sorted for the part 2. Yeah. Cheers, Tommy. Good advertising there. Yeah, for me, were there any other films in contention for you, or was it just this one?
I was also thinking of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because that one's a fun Gonzo sequel in itself. I mean, you have your typicals like the Aliens. I think some of the Child's Play sequels are fun. Brad Chucky would have been definitely a good one to cover.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Terrifier 2 is also good, but that's so long, and it would have been on rewatch. That movie was tough to get through on rewatch. I'll say that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I haven't seen many of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, to be honest. I'm more of a Halloween guy, I guess. But
Mm.
yeah, I've seen the original quite a few times.
Mm.
I've seen Freddy vs. Jason. I've seen Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I didn't like. We have covered that on the podcast. That one's very much, I think it was kind of an experiment thing before he made Scream.
Mm.
I think he said that in interviews. And now this one. So yeah, and I think this is probably my favorite out of all of them that I've seen. And am I right in saying that Nancy doesn't come back in the second one? She just comes back for this one.
The second one's a weird one where like it becomes like a body horror movie where it becomes someone becoming like possessed by Freddy. I've only seen it a handful of times, and it changed up the formula where instead of getting killed in their dreams, it's Freddy's possessing this kid, and then he's killing people in real life. And it just, I don't know. I think this movie set the franchise back on track. And when you think of like the quintessential Freddy, you're probably thinking of Dream Warriors or the first movie.
Yeah. So initial reactions for me, I really liked it. I just, what's great about this franchise is the fact that I love the fact that it gives itself license to go really wacky and really creative with the horror. I mean, my God, there's some really creative stuff in here, which I really liked. And then towards the end, like it kind of subverts your expectations with that sort of thing, which I quite liked in the end. At first, it kind of was just like, as you're watching it, you're like, oh, okay, this is not what I thought, what I was going to see. But yeah, I think it really works at the end when you kind of sit back and think about it. It's like, oh yeah, that was quite a clever thing to do, to just kind of hold back a little bit, if you know what I mean. We'll get into it for sure. But again, I think with Psycho 2, there's acting problems. With one particular character. But yeah, I mean, Robert Englund is magnificent as always. Very scary. Yeah, just the creativity of some of the kills is quite remarkable, really. And really kind of ingenious and clever and very much related to these teenagers' characters, which I thought was a really great idea. There's some aspects of the film I think they kind of could have played on a little bit more with one particular character, which I found really fascinating. And then she just kind of goes, which was a bit disappointing. Again, there's kind of like a reveal at the end, which I'm sure you'll talk about to do with Freddy and another character. Yeah, so that was kind of, did feel a bit tacked on as well, like in Psycho 2. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Yeah. So how does this compare for you then, compared to all the other ones? Is this your favorite one?
Yeah, of all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, I mean, number one is a classic in itself, but I think this one is the one that I rewatch more. I mean, I have a couple of friends that like every year around Halloween, we try and watch this movie and like get together. Nice. I had the chance to see this on the big screen last year.
Cool.
From some like indie horror house that they do screens. They did a double feature of this and Nightmare 4, which isn't as good, but it's still fun seeing both. And we're obviously all there for Dream Warriors. And that movie is just so much fun with a crowd that's just like right there for it. So I think that, yeah, when I think like I want to throw on a Nightmare movie, I'm going to throw on this one.
Yeah. Right, let's get into it then with directing, as always. I quite like the opening scene where Patricia Arquette has been like making this model house out of like lollipop sticks. Yeah. And of course she falls asleep, and there's a great little simple shot that starts on her, and the headboard kind of fills the frame, and the camera pulls out to reveal the house that she's built right behind her. So I thought that was quite clever in itself. Like she follows this little girl in the house. There's like some effective pieces of imagery with like skulls fueling this fire, this furnace in the house. And the girl is saying, Freddy's home. There's some cool bits of like slow-mo in there. I like the little glimpse of Freddy in shadow when he does run around the corner, but it didn't feel like too dramatic really. Like, and Patricia Arquette being stuck in this mud just didn't really work for me in that little moment. But the dream within a dream scene next was great, where you think Patricia Arquette has woken up fully. Nope. Freddy's face appears in the window, and I loved how like the taps morph into Freddy's claws. That was so cool to see. That was awesome. Yeah, so I felt like it was a great like tease of kind of what's to come. Nothing too much, nothing too gory or expansive, just really clever in what they're doing. even though kind of set design wise, it looks very impressive. And yeah, this little great. I think the transitions to the dream world are so well done in this film.
Oh yeah,
so well done.
I was about to say, like, I think, while the first one's obviously like more iconic because it's the one that birthed Freddy, I think this does a much better job of like, differentiating between like the real world and dream world. And there's some parts that are really fun. Like, I love the one shot of Heather Langenkamp where she falls back into the chair and just like,
oh yeah, sinks into the chair.
Yeah, and it really cuts to like her and like the dream world where she's like, wait, what? And I just like how like, there's different parts where like, when the editing of this movie is just really fun in a way where like, you have the one death of the bad girl, Taryn, where she dies and immediately it cuts to the D&D nerd, Joe, not Joey, Philip. And immediately you see like all these like feathers. So it looks like almost like pillow feathers in a way.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's just really fun. And I think that the overall framing of like Freddy in ways how like they don't just make him just like a guy running down the street from you with a claw.
No.
They do like clever transformations for him where like at one point he's a TV, at one point he's a marionette.
Yeah. He's a giant worm.
Yeah. But the funny thing about the worm is that they originally on set made the worm pink.
What?
And then they shot it and they're like, wait, Freddy, this looks like a fucking like dick. That's like yeah.
Oh God.
It's like, wait, we need to horror this up a little bit more.
It is already horrible. Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the concept art? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, seriously. Like, everyone got the set, like, you did not think this through whatsoever. Like, come on, guys.
Get rid of the pink spray cans. Get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on, make this black. Throw some like black guck on it. It'll be better. Yeah. Trust me.
Not white guck. Not white. No.
Yeah. Exactly. But I just love like the different like the creative like monster transformations. I mean, I like the almost like nod adjacent to Argonauts where it's Freddy as a skeleton attacking. Like,
oh yeah. Watson. I love little touches like that where they kind of go old school stop animation. You get that a lot with like Evil Dead 2 as well, which we've talked about on the show. I know when Boaz was on the show, he didn't like that at all. I was like, come on, man, it's charming.
Yeah.
What element of like kind of the opening scenes did you enjoy?
I just liked like how it just said this movie immediately gives off like a late night dark vibe where I just love how they like cut to all the different things that Patricia Arquette Kristen is like doing to stay awake, where like you see the cut of the Diet Coke in the corner, which for the caffeine right there, how she's cutting coffee grinds right there, all that stuff, and just like how clearly this person's already an insomniac right there. So they definitely like show in a way of just like, oh my God. And then I just love how decrepit the house looks in the beginning.
I don't know if that's an American thing, but I've never known anyone in this country. Well, I've never seen it like drinking Diet Coke and coffee at the same time. I'm like, what the hell?
That's like when like you're doing like a double shift, I guess. And like, there's been some points where like, where I'll be like exhausted or Diet Coke and then later on the night grab bowl or something like that. But at the same time, that's just like asking for like a lot of trouble.
Have you tried energy drinks?
Yeah, exactly.
That's our era. Yeah, we use energy drinks now, not Diet Coke and coffee.
The unfortunate thing for the Elm Street kids that Red Bull didn't exist back then.
No. Just Freddy would just be very upset in the modern era. He was like, oh, come on.
He's like, oh, come on, bitch.
I hate this Red Bull.
What's all this caffeine?
I want to torture people's minds. Oh, Red Bull. Fuck you. But what I found great about the characters is that all of the kills are related to kind of teenage issues and very much related to their characters themselves, which I found quite clever. Like Jennifer loves watching TV, so she gets killed by the TV with Kruger having these incredible like robotic arms, which gave me terrifying Superman 3 flashbacks with Laura Lang. Oh my God. Just horrible, that film at the end. That really freaked me out. Did that film freak you out as a kid?
I still haven't seen Superman 3. I've only seen the first one, to be honest. Yeah.
Don't watch it. Too scary.
Yeah. That's what I
thought. Joey gets like tongue-tied, literally, and in a coma by this very sexy nurse. So that was very much related to like teenage boy emotions and fantasies.
Hmm.
So that was kind of quite clever as well. Then near the end, Will, who's paralyzed from the waist down but can walk in the dream world, is chased down by this giant like spiky torture wheelchair.
Yeah.
So obviously obvious connotations there, but you think he's going to get away when he becomes like a master wizard from D&D. Very nerdy and goofy, but I was here for it. Yeah, the CG was did look kind of dated watching it now, but I don't really care about that stuff. I felt it was really charming. Yeah.
That's so little charming. Like I just love the marionette person too, like Philip, how he immediately is just like they kind of tease in the beginning of like he's like into puppets and stuff like that. And so what does Freddy do? He makes him a puppet himself. And the like body horror of like how they like show the veins or anything like that. I think Chuck Russell is really good at showing like how excruciating this is from the kids. And I love how it just cuts from like the dream world of what Philip's happening in the dream world of like him, like his veins are getting stuck out like this, and whenever he's walking around, to then like a nurse seeing him walk by, and it just looks like he's sleepwalking.
So. Yeah, that was a really great kill because, as you say, like you get a lot of the perspective of the people that are genuinely awake. Like there's a lot of the kills you're just in the dream world, but with this one, you have both perspectives, which I thought was a really great idea. So certainly with all these sequences, it kind of keeps you guessing of how Freddy's going to kill these people. But I think my favorite was with Taryn, Jennifer Rubin's character, and she suffered from I think a heroin addiction. And quite shockingly, Freddy's knives turn into syringes. But not only that, the wounds on Taryn's arms start sort of winking at her before Freddy stabs her with like these, new syringe fingers. Just really quite disgusting, brutal stuff for me. That was quite daring for a sequence. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of a sequel to, we've been talking about horror sequels where we had Psycho 2, which like kind of subverted it a little bit. And this way, I felt Dream Warriors kind of maximized the concept of Freddy, where when you watch the first movie, while I still love the first movie, Freddy doesn't do anything really other than slash people. I mean, he slashes people in creative ways and stuff like that with his razor hands. But he doesn't do anything like this movie where it's just like he turns a person into like, fucking puppet, or in the later sequels where he turns someone into like a bug or something like that. But in terms of this movie specifically, they were really like, okay, let's just phrase a guy who's just gonna fuck with people of what they love the most or what they fear the most.
Yeah, it's really. I think that's where they really feed into the terror and the horror aspects. Is not necessarily like how Freddy is killing these people. It's the imagery behind it as well, and it very much relates to these characters, which kind of makes it feel that more scary and brutal for these characters and for us watching it. But I think my favorite scene for me is the second dream sequence where Patricia Arquette, Kirsten, pulls Nancy, Heather Langenkamp, in to save her. There's like brilliant creativity and creative camera work and kind of simple stuff at the same time to match it. And I love the simple transition shot of Kirsten seeing this trike melt before her, and then kind of backs out of the room. But the door changes to Freddy's door. Then the camera pulls out to reveal the house, which was just brilliantly done. Another great transition to the dream world. Then I loved the patience of the filmmaking where like Kirsten sees this cool giant rat on the dinner table and the camera goes right round her to her face, then turns around her to have everything in shot, if you know what I mean. Then like a simple cut to the rat, which suddenly just comes to life in like a very small moment in a jump scare. So I loved how much effort was involved in such kind of a small scare. That was kind of, I just really appreciated that. Then I loved the dramatic effect of Freddy, the worm that goes under the floorboards and up the walls. That was really quite incredible to see. And then there's like the shock of Freddy's giant head eating Kirsten. It was like Freddy was doing like a wrestling move, like the way he drops her to the floor. So I just love the mix of like simplicity and the grand nature of the creativity in the scene. I just thought that was just magnificent, really.
Yeah. And to touch upon like a non-horror moment of direction that I really liked, I love the one scene where they're all in like the group circle type thing, and they do the group hypnosis, and they immediately like, are we awake right now, or no, we're not? And then all of a sudden you see all like the balls on where that thing is called, the metronome or whatever, how that like floats away or whatever like that, and how the music swells, and how you have the one kid being like, in my dreams I can walk and everything like that. And I just love how it felt between the score and the way it's directed, the way it's framed, just really feels very dreamlike. I mean, this is a movie I've watched very often at like, midnight or 1 a.m. or something like that, and be like, okay, like I'm immediately locked into the dream world. This feels very like eerie in a way.
Yeah, that's quite an effective scene because it takes its time. It takes its time as well for you to actually realize that they're in the dream world. It's not an instant thing with a lot of the other dream sequences. Like, oh yeah, they're in the dream world now. With this one, with the shared one, it's interesting. They take their time to reveal it, so it shows a lot of confidence. The fact that we're going to do it slightly differently now to really kind of play with your expectations, play with your perceptions of how you're actually watching this film. So yeah, that was kind of really well done for me. Do you have a favorite shot or scene for you, Tommy?
I think in terms of favorite scene, it would probably have to be the, like you were saying. Actually, I'm gonna go with the Welcome to Primetime, bitch. The TV scene. I just think that the way in terms of directing, how it cuts from like the TV, how it's just like a typical talk show with what's his name from Beetlejuice, Dick Cavett, and then like how it immediately goes from like cutting to her, and she's like, you could see the girl at that point. Why am I forgetting her name? Right? Jennifer. It's like, okay, we see Jennifer put out the cigarettes, and she like, the thing that we've probably all done. Awake. The thing I do way too much when I try and put on a movie past 10 p.m. where like I'm just like nodding off, and I'm like, you can see that right there, and how immediately you could feel the eeriness of like, wait, like is she staying awake and stuff like that. And the kill itself, I mean, spoiler, that's my favorite quote of the movie. But also though, it's just like the way it just cuts to immediately Freddy being like on the TV set, and it's like, wait, what's going on here? I think this is really fun.
I love that. You do not expect that whatsoever. You feel like Freddy might appear like before that in the room, but not on the actual TV show. That was really cool to see. A great surprise, and did not see that coming whatsoever. So, directing score for me then for Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, probably one of the best subtitles you will hear in horror, in my opinion. Yeah, this is really well done. I think, yes, some of the CGI looks dated, but I don't really judge films with dated CGI. It's just, what was available at the time. So that's totally fine. Yeah, there's some really great creativity here in the production design and the makeup, and it all just feels very tactile. And I wouldn't say it's like genuinely scary. I don't think I was that scared, to be honest. There was one moment that got me with the skeleton, with the hand coming up through the ground. I think that was it. But like, I just really appreciate the design here and just how creative they were going with all these sequences. You can really sense that they've put an awful lot of thought into how wacky and wild and horrible and disgusting these kills go to, what levels they go to. I mean, the one with the syringes, I still can't believe they did that. I'm just like, wow, that's
at the time
pretty gnarly. Yeah, especially at the time for sure. So it's good, man. From a directional point of view, it's really good for a horror film. I guess the one criticism I would say is that I literally just mentioned is that for all its horror creativity, I was never like that scared. I was scared for them. Like, there were certainly moments where I was just like, I don't think some of these are going to live. Freddy could be killing them right now. But I wasn't that scared. Yeah, so I'll go like an 8.4 for me. As like creative horror films go, it's pretty top notch. When you're going for that kind of creative horror stuff, they really push the max. Yeah,
for sure. For myself with direction, I think that this movie, direction's I think one of the strongest parts of this whole movie. I think that this is kind of like the Aliens to Alien of the franchise.
Yeah.
In a way where like this takes in like almost like a more of like an action kind of like a way for that's why I'm not as like upset that's not really that scary and everything like that. I think that Chuck
Okay.
Russell really brought just like really creative energy and direction right here, and just like incredible, just awesome set designs and awesome just dream logic. I think that this is the best version of the franchise, like differentiating between the real world and the dream world, and just how he frames it is really fun. Like how he does, like, the moment of Heather Langenkamp coming into the room for the first time talking to the teens, how it gives like the hero's moment right there in a way. The score almost kind of swells in a way. I'm going to go a little bit higher than you. I think like an 8.7. So,
okay, sure.
Yeah, I just think the direction's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, screenplay then. I think it's interesting in the film how they bring back Nancy from the first film, that these kids in this mental hospital are being terrorized by Freddy Krueger. So she comes in to help, but there's obviously conflict there right from the start that Nancy uses an experimental drug to stop her dreaming, and it could work on these kids. But of course, the doctors and Neil Gordon, Craig Wasson's character thinks that that's not a good idea to use an experimental drug on teenagers. They think their bad dreams can be explained by their own like teenage struggles of growing up, etc. So it becomes interesting when does Nancy tell everyone the truth that Freddy Krueger is a real demon entity, or however you want to call him. I think what's funny is that I think the film gets away with Nancy telling the truth after the second kid gets killed, because the way Philip dies, it looks very elaborate, with Freddy using his veins as puppet strings. But to the doctor's perspective, Philip has just jumped off the tower, whereas the next death, Jennifer headbutts the TV. That's a weird way to kill yourself. So I think,
yeah.
So in some ways, it's quite clever timing for Nancy to say, "Yeah, I think I can explain this now."
to riff on that moment for a second, I mean, like, you have to imagine, like,
it won't sound stupid.
Yeah, when Lawrence Fishburne, credited as Larry Fishburne in this movie, which is hilarious. When he opens up the TV, when he opens up the room and sees her head in the TV, like, what do they think happened? Do you think that she just like gave a running start and then just like boom?
He's quite short, and the TV is quite high up.
Yeah, it's quite high up. So it's just like, at that point, it's like, all right, come on. But the first film shoot was kind of in many ways about how, like, parents won't believe you and everything like that. And this movie gives a similar thematic theme of how institutions won't believe you. And I like how it's believable, though. I mean, out of all the slasher movies, it's the most believable. It's like, your dreams aren't killing you, though. But there are some lines that are like very little cheesy, where it's just like Heather Langenkamp, and I think that her acting is not the best in this movie, as much as I love her.
No.
But I just love how there's one part where she's like, they'll be defenseless against their dreams. It's like, oh, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah. One of the aspects of the film which I think they don't do enough with, and I think it would have been fun, is when Neil, Craig Wasson's character, sees this nun. And at first you kind of think it's some sort of ghostly character. She pops in and out of the film, and very intriguing, very scary as well, in my opinion. But ultimately, she just ends up just explaining a little bit of backstory for Freddy Krueger, that he was, born from someone in the wing of the now unused wing of the mental institution, and burnt alive or something. So that was kind of a little bit disappointing. I would have liked some more greater catharsis with that character and seen her a little bit more. But I guess maybe if you have more of that character, you're pushing focus away from your heroes, your dream warriors, if you will. So, but I really but that's kind of the frustrating thing, is that I really loved the intrigue of what they were doing with that character in those little sequences. So it was just a little bit disappointing that it was just backstory, and the fact that she's just telling our heroes how to kill Freddy in the end. And it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, all she really is just like exposition dump. And I think one of the later sequels goes into that character a little bit more, like explain Freddy's origin.
Okay.
But, that's the sequel. We're talking about one movie right here.
Yeah.
And, I do agree with you there, where it's just like, all right, like, we could have had a little bit, but I do like how they don't explain like what she is. Like, she's just a ghost figure or something like that, I guess.
Did you want more of the character, or was it you're okay with just how it plays out.
Yeah, I think I was okay with it overall because like it would have shined away from things that we are great about this movie, like Freddy himself, and I think most of the teens are fun in this movie too. And if we had a little bit more, I think Amanda Kruger was just a clever way of exposition, but they could have had that being a living person too, I guess.
Yeah,
it didn't have to be a ghost.
Yeah. I guess it would have been nice to have just more of a dramatic way of how the nun delivers this exposition, rather than just using like her creepy presence. But yeah.
One thing that's funny to me about like how they introduce Heather Langenkamp back into this movie, like
right?
How old are we supposed to think she is in this? Because to put in the timeline of like
mid-20s or something.
Yeah, mid-20s, I imagine. But like Elm Street 1 was 85 or 84 rather. Mm-hmm. This was 87, so like 3 years later. And at that point, when she was in the first movie, she's like a teenager. She's like maybe a sophomore in high school. And then obviously, timeline doesn't match the release date timeline. But like at the same point, that's like, oh, she's just like hot shot grad student or something like that. And, the way they make her...
Just like 18, 17 in this film then, maybe.
Yeah. But like, the way they make her older is that she has like the one streak of white hair.
Yeah.
Which I forget if she had that by the end of the first. I don't think so.
No, definitely
not. Yeah. It's just a very like, all right, like whatever, fuck it, just move on. We'll get to it. So, but I do think that it's just clever how much they just make it so like, obviously no one's going to believe them right here.
Yeah. So towards the end, like the split stories at the end felt a little disappointing at first because Neil and Nancy's dad are found like the remains of Freddy Krueger, and they have to bury them in like with holy water. My fear was, how was this going to be as interesting and intense as what's happening in like the dream world with Freddy and the kids trying to save Joey, being tongue-tied. In fact, I think the most creative scenes were with like Nancy's dad and Neil fighting Freddy's skeleton, and when like the hand pops out, that definitely got me. I certainly jumped out of my chair. I was like, oh my God. And Nancy's dad gets impaled, which was definitely like a scene I didn't see coming, and that felt pretty brutal. And in the dream world, when we have like the final three, we get like a great trippy transition to where Freddy and Joey are hiding out. But then it did feel quite basic in the fighting moves and with the knife work with the glove. And it felt a little bit anticlimactic with like the scenes with the mirrors and the multiple Freddys. And then when you think like Freddy's defeated, I was like, oh, was that it? So I feel like in terms of scale of action, it felt very disappointing. And then you get this kind of heartfelt scene with Nancy and the ghost of her father. And then as you begin to realize, hang on, how is this possible? Freddy appears and brutally stabs Nancy before they finally defeat Freddy, which I certainly didn't see coming. So structurally, the final act doesn't go how I thought it was going to go at all, which was great. So it very much focuses on more of the emotions of the characters rather than spectacle, which I didn't see coming. Because obviously you have this very grand, big Freddy worm. It's full of spectacle and stuff, and certainly a few of the other scenes with the vein puppetry. That's really like the big showpiece scenes. So it's really interesting how they change it up and just focus actually on the emotion of the characters, which I thought was a really clever thing. Whereas going in, you think, oh, they're going to go really big here, but oh, actually, no, they're not. So I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, it's definitely like a thing where like the low budget of this worked in its favor. So this movie really had like a $4.6 million budget, which is relatively tiny. I mean, but you don't really feel it throughout the most of the movie. I mean, I think this goes back more to the direction, but like how they use that budget is kind of maximized in a way.
Oh yeah.
And we touched upon this briefly upon direction, but it's just like, again, like great how the script, like, made Freddy more of an interesting killer, where he is going to kill you by the way, the thing you're afraid of, or the thing that you're like really into and stuff like that. It's kind of like Pennywise. And this was, I think, 2 or 3 years before Pennywise was a thing, like the It book.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like right before then and everything that, or I think this is maybe a year after. So, but I don't think it's a ripoff in that aspect.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that they just like made Freddy a more interesting of a villain than just, while the Dream Warrior thing is cool in the first movie, like I said, he doesn't do anything really creative other than like killing people with a knife. The way it's shot is interesting, but maybe the kills in this way have been leveled up in a way, where he transforms into different things. They write him into good things, and they give Freddy amazing one-liners throughout this movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Pennywise from It, and very similar character. And yes, you could argue like Freddy Krueger has been kind of overdone now, but when you compare the two characters, I would still say Freddy Krueger is my favorite of the two compared to Pennywise. Not because, there hasn't been that many adaptations of Pennywise. You've had the two recent films and the What's His Chops TV show.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, that's the one. The TV show with Tim Curry. So, and obviously those two demons, if you will, have very similar abilities. They can change form and stuff. But like with Pennywise, he can. That's just his favorite form. Like he can change into all sorts of different things. And I think, like, certainly with Joker, Folie à Deux and stuff, like, clowns are just overdone now.
Yeah.
They really
take
are.
A break.
Whereas, like, please give the clowns a break, people. Yeah, very bad rap. But, like, Freddy, he just has such a unique design. Like, the claws, the hat, the jumper, the burnt face. Yeah, and the fact that with a lot of these films, they're just being very creative and messing with his shape and form and what he can do. Certainly with varying levels of success with that, for sure.
Yeah.
But certainly in this film, all successes, in my opinion, absolutely.
Yeah.
Regardless of the Freddy worm looking like a penis to begin with, but
it's a way, like, I think that like Freddy is very much like a guy that, like, of the like horror icons of like yesteryear, he's one that could be best suited to like an actually good remake treatment, because like even if the CGI is shitty in like a Freddy movie, you could be like, oh well, it's just Dreamland in a way.
You can get away with it. Yeah, they've written themselves into just creative heaven.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, oh, the CGI is shitty. Oh, it's just a dream. Whatever. Don't worry.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
this kid's imagination is shit. So the CGI is shit.
Yeah, this kid can't imagine good special effects. What do you want from us?
We're not saying the CGI is really bad. It's still very good for the time, to be fair, I think. With now that you said the budget is only like 4 million, it's very impressive, to be honest.
Yeah.
So funny, interesting lines then. What I found really interesting is literally the quote right at the start where it comes up, sleep, those little slices of death, how I loathe them, Edgar Allan Poe. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's really interesting to like front load your film with that quote from Edgar Allan Poe. He did not like sleep.
Yeah, it's cool just to like frame it in that aspect right there. So I think that Freddy obviously has the best lines in this.
Yeah.
And all that shit. I mean, if I had to go for best line, this is it, Jennifer, your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch. Every time. I remember Freddy versus Jason opens up with like all these quotes kind of doing like the Edgar Allan Poe thing, and then one of the quotes is just Freddy saying, welcome to prime time, bitch.
It's definitely one of the... That was very close to my favorite line, but it's not. But some of the other lines are pretty cool. What's the black character called? Deacon, I think. Kincaid, yeah.
Yeah.
He says, oh, great, now it's my dick that's killing me. When they think, it's all, teenage problems and stuff, and they talk about their own sexuality. Sexual problems. And he says, oh, great, now it's my dick that's killing me. That was funny.
I love him also saying, let's go kick this motherfucker's ass all over Dreamland.
Yeah, that's my favorite line, yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite. Can I ask you something? Certainly. Who gives a fuck what you think? That was good. Yeah, I think that's all the ones I had. Yeah, my favorite is let's go kick the motherfucker's ass all over Dreamland. Oh, that was so satisfying to hear. Really, really cool line.
I just love the one kid saying, like, I'm the wizard master. And what does he say after? I wish I could find the IMDb right now, but he's like, sorry, kid, I don't believe in monsters or ever. Something along the lines of that, where he's like, kid, shut the fuck up, this nerd shit.
Yeah. Nerds are cool, Freddy.
Yeah, and then he says like, "Let's get high" to Taryn.
Yeah, yeah. Very naughty character, Freddy. So screenplay score for me. Yeah, there's not a lot to not like, really. I think there's some really great stuff, and I don't think it really gets repetitive like the Dream stuff. I think, yeah, I was never bored. It didn't drag. There's some great lines. Again, like there's some clever writing, especially in that final act, which I explained with your perceptions and expectations of what you're going to see in that final act, which was great. And yeah, just the writing of the creative kills, and as we said, just the way these kills relate to their own, all these characters' issues was quite clever to see. Yeah, great lines. And also there's an element, you could say, that there's enough simplicity with the storytelling that it lets a lot of the characters and the big sequences shine through with the horror stuff. So yeah, I think it's really impressive. Is it better than directing? I'm not sure. So I will go like an 8.2. How about you, sir?
So I think I'm like around the same range right there. I think that the screenplay, I mean, the way they just elevate the Freddy character and make him more creative of a character than he was in the first one. The screenplay was written by Frank Darabont and Wes Craven, which is insane, and it's our guy Bruce Wagner, who I haven't really heard of much of. But I think the three of them just like really just like maximize the concept of Freddy in a way. And I think it's just a really fun 80s movie. Like, just like, this is the point of Freddy where you can see where he becomes just like the annoying jokester that becomes in some of the sequels, but it's still restrained enough where it's still like a little bit of like menace to him. And, so if quite like a wire rope, like thin line to go to. But I mean, overall, I think the way they've reintroduced like the two legacy characters in a way, or the two sequel returning characters, is fun. I think though, seeing John Saxon just desolate in a bar, drunk out of his mind, where in the first movie he's like the town sheriff or anything like that, and now he's just the town drunk. I just love the screenplay in a way. So I'm going to go like probably 8.2, 8.3. I think 8.3.
Yeah, sure. Right. Acting then. Yeah, so... yeah. I wasn't trying to be funny there, but yeah. Heather Langenkamp, not great. Yeah, I feel like she's a little bit wooden at times, a bit like Meg Till from Psycho 2. It's strange because obviously she's a legacy character in this, and you would have thought she would be the one like really good actor, but she's not, which is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I think that like the scenes of like her and Craig Wasson when they're in the restaurant. I don't think Craig Wasson's great. I mean, he's like a Bill Maher looking guy, looks exactly like Bill Maher. But when they're in the restaurant together talking about like Thai food and everything like that and everything, and like her explaining her backstory, it's like really like, okay, let's just get past this one part. Come on.
yeah. Yeah, but Craig Wasson is not. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. Again, I just feel like sometimes he can feel a little bit one note, and there's only one degree of like fear and struggle that he can go to in this film. There's not a lot of extra levels, and I feel like Heather Langenkamp is similar in that way. Is that there's only a few different levels of scared that they can go to. Patricia Arquette, on the other hand, she's really good in this, I think. Like, I would have certainly liked a little bit more of her and then less of Heather Langenkamp. But yeah, you feel like she can go to bigger levels of panic and desperation. Definitely the best thing in this from the kids for me.
Yeah, she definitely sells the terror, and it's insane that this was like her first movie.
Really?
Her debut. So in that aspect, like, you can really see why she ended up becoming like,
an Oscar winner.
Yeah, an Oscar winner, and like probably the biggest of the cast, other than Lawrence Fishburne, who Lawrence Fishburne in this movie, real quick, I think the best metaphor is like, it's the equivalent of like Michael Jordan getting cut from the JV fucking basketball team, where it's like, you didn't know what you had on your bench. Like,
yeah.
And it's very disappointing seeing like Lawrence Fishburne's in this movie, and then he's just the doctor that like, or the aide that talks to the kids. You would have loved to see him interact with Freddy. I think he's fine in the movie for what he does, but he's really underutilized. It's really like you didn't know you had this hidden gem in your cast right here.
I'm guessing he's not in any of the other sequels.
No, this is the only one he's in. So
yeah.
Really disappointing in that aspect. But I mean, I think of the teens too. I mean, I think Jennifer Rubin is just really fun as the drug addict kind of kid. I think that she sells like one of the better lines in this movie.
Oh yeah.
My dreams. In my dreams, like I'm good and I'm beautiful and I'm bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the scene where the acting kind of really shone through for me was with one of the nastiest and creative scenes in the film where Freddy appears as one of Philip's puppets and then uses the veins of Philip to walk him around, as we've kind of talked about. That was proper disgusting. The acting from Philip pretending to be pulled around from the perspective of people, that are awake was fine. And even when he is being pulled around with his own veins, that was fine. But it was the panic of Joey, Rodney Eastman's character, who can't talk, who was great, like trying to get the attention of anyone who could try and help. Ira Hayden as Will was great in it too, with his desperation. Plus, I love the way like the giant Freddy cuts the veins at the end. The giant projection of him. That was cool. Yeah,
I guess it would be a good point to like talk about Freddy himself right here.
Robert
Englund.
Sure.
Robert Englund. I think this is his like masterclass performance as Freddy. I think that he toes the line between being like just like his prankster jokester self and just being like really scary in himself. I think that he gets so many just fun little one-liners that we talked about before, like the welcome to prime time and everything. But you just tell just like the mess of how much he's just like pissed off and angry at these kids. And I think that, like, whenever he's talking about, like, when he sees Heather Langenkamp again, he's like, you! And it's like, oh, God! Oh!
Yeah. Is this his best performance as Freddy Krueger for you? Or
I think that he's given maybe more to do in the first one.
Right.
But I think he's more fun in this movie. I think that you can see Freddy and Robert Englund himself just having just, like, the time of his life with this role in this one.
Oh, yeah. Because I would say he's not in it that much, I don't think. Eglund in the makeup. There's certainly elements of, he's very much not in the room and stuff with the actors. But yeah, every time he's on screen, he has a real presence, and you're like, you feel like you're leaning back away from the screen when he's on screen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. I will say this, that we were talking earlier about how like Heather Langenkamp and Greg Wasson like leave a lot of room to be desired. Thank God John Saxon was in a lot of their scenes towards the end, because I think John Saxon is a great part of this movie, and I think that him just being the Don Trenton cop, and he just sells being just like a pathetic guy who just lost everything, can't come to terms with what he lost in the first movie really well. And I just think he's a great little just like downtrodden guy in that.
Yeah, so certainly from acting perspectives, I would love to have seen the nun played by Nan Martin a bit more. Yeah, for me, I feel like she was as scary as Freddy Krueger himself sometimes. Yeah, she was great. So I definitely wanted more of her, and John Saxon for sure. Yeah, I think it definitely would have elevated some of the scenes, especially if we had Saxon and Langenkamp in scenes together. If he came into the story a bit earlier, maybe his death would have just hit home a little bit more. So I think
he's definitely not
enough. They only have like that scene in the bar, isn't it, before he gets killed? So it would have been great if we had like at least 2 more scenes with Heather and John Saxon together. I think that would have been great. And it maybe could have made her performance a little bit better as well, because I think probably her best scenes, Heather Langenkamp, is effectively that goodbye scene before she dies. When she thinks John Saxon is dead.
It is funny because, like, rewatching the first movie, I don't think she's a bad actress in the first movie. I think that she like sells tell her well and everything like that. But like, I guess like trying to play a slightly more mature character or version of her character just like did not do well for her, because like she just comes off as so wooden and broken. So I do want to shout out also just like the quick cameos of Dick Cavett and Zsa Zsa Gabor and how much fun they are. Apparently, the producers gave Dick Cavett for the scene, like, okay, you can pick anyone as your guest for the scene. And he picked Zaza Gabor because, like, for those of you who don't know, Zaza Gabor was essentially like, I guess, the Paris Hilton of her day, where she was just like this Hungarian American socialite in like the 50s and 80s and stuff like that.
Right.
She's like, not really known for anything. She just was known for this like extravagant Hollywood lifestyles or anything like that, and people just thought she was a joke. So the fact that she got the cameo in this movie was just hilarious, like a real time capsule of the 80s.
Right. Okay. Good fact.
Yeah.
Favorite performance for you?
All right, this is tough. So I think like the obvious answer has to go with Robert Englund. I think that he's just really fun and great. I'm gonna go though more because Freddie he's always gonna be reliable. He's always the best part of these movies in terms of acting. But Kristen Parker, Patricia Arquette, I think that she's like really fun, and she elevates this movie to an extent where you wish that Heather Langenkamp could match her level of acting.
Yep, I think you're in my dream world, Tommy. Not like that. Yeah, I'm going Patricia Arquette as well. I think she's incredible, and as you say, I agree with everything you said. Like, she really elevates this, and she, the level of panic and fear that she can portray is really good, and certainly at such a young age as well is quite impressive. And of course, Robert Englund, no one can play this character other than him. And I just hope they never really revive this character again, because obviously I think Robert Englund has retired the character. Well, he's said he won't play him again, I think.
Yeah. Very recently, he's like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah. Because it's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy to really get that character right. So good on him for kind of retiring the character. Yeah. So acting score for me then, a bit like Psycho 2, a lot of the performances are quite good apart from one that really brings it down. So but Craig Wason, or however you say his surname, isn't great either. So I'll go like a 7.8. 7.7.
Okay.
How about you, sir?
So I think that like overall the acting is good. I think most of the teen characters in this movie are fun and like great. It's just that the two adult leads of this movie just really dragged out the movie in a way. And it's funny, like some of the bit parts we have here, like, the one orderly that's just like, come on, Taryn, I'll give you like some drugs or something like that. That guy's just such a bad actor.
Yeah. Oh, such a dick.
It's such a dick too. But I think that regardless, though, I mean, I think that we still have some good performances right here. We don't really talk about the older lady. Yeah. Like the head of the hospital. I forget her name.
Yeah.
Priscilla Pointer.
You just want to like go into the screen and just like grab her shoulders and like, listen to them. Freddy is real.
This is awesome. And I also just love the performance of Patricia Arquette's mom. Yeah. She's just a great like little 80s socialite in the way.
Oh, yeah.
So, but overall, mixed up between the two terrible performances, I'm going to go, I think, 7.5.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That just reminds me of that great little scene where Freddy cuts her head off and she's still moaning at her or something. Her head cut off. That was great.
Yeah.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Yep. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors gets a pretty respectable 48.8, which wins. So my winning streak ends. Thanks, Tommy. And beats out Psycho 2 that just got 46.3. Yeah. So Freddy has stabbed Norman Bates in the chest. So next episode, as Terrifier 3 is out, we are niching down to a very small genre of Christmas horror films. So get Google out. So we'll be having a look at Christmas horror films. And we'll have yet another returning guest, probably the guest that I've had on the most, Christina and Mac from the World of Horror podcast, will be joining me once again for that one. Tommy, it is always great having you on the podcast. Always fascinating hearing your expertise in the horror genre. And also just thanks for helping me out after a dropout. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem.
This is your opportunity again to tell us about your podcast, and where can we find you, sir?
Yeah, so once again, Haven't Seen It is a podcast where me and my co-host Timmy, we cover a movie each week that one of us has never seen before. So this month is a horror month. We're going to be covering some great movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original Dracula, 1931, and also Blue Velvet. So stick around for that. And you can find us at Seen It Pod. That's on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Threads. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Excellent. It is time to say goodbye, people. It is goodbye from Tommy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me. It's pretty late here, but I kind of don't want to go to sleep right now, to be honest. I don't want Freddie to get me or my mother to get me either. Bye, Mom. Bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off. Thank you.